рудая, там голодна водиченька, ай-яй-яй. Ой, у полі криниченька, хоп, сюди рудая, там голодна водиченька, ай-яй-яй. Ой, там роман воли пасе, сюди рудая. Ой, там роман воли пасе, хоп, сюди рудая, Катерина воду несе, ай-яй-яй. Ой, там роман воли пасе, хоп, сюди рудая, Катерина воду несе, ай-яй-яй.
Bo, so what was the big deal about 1979 to you and the group? What stands out about 1979?
Well, the biggest thing was meeting relatives in Ukraine, for sure. I listened to their stories and the updates on our family over there. And they took me to the family grave sites there. This was in around Lviv. And what I remember most is that they were so grateful for my gifts, my stories, and the cash that I gave them. And it was quite a memorable time, that's for sure.
You know what? There was this amazing thing that would happen every concert we went to or every town that we visited. Many of our members of the troupe had a chance to meet for the first time these relatives. Yeah. Grandparents, aunts, long-lost cousins, etc. I happen to have this cool product of the time. It's called SX70 Polaroid camera. They're trending again. You take these pictures and they instantly develop and you can hand them off to whomever. You don't have to take them in to a film store, etc. So I kind of became the company photographer. And every place we went to, I was able to capture this first-time greeting of long-lost relatives, people that we didn't know existed. And I was just like mesmerized. And I also felt like I'm doing a good service for Rusalka in general. I mean, I'm new to the group. Yeah. So this was my offering. This was my chance to actually, it wasn't a big deal for me because I just thought this is now a lasting piece of your memory.
And it was a huge deal for them.
Huge deal, because they would never have this opportunity again. And honestly, I could have sold that camera on the black market for 100 million rubles.
Yeah, it's funny that nobody thought about that. Going in.
Yeah, exactly. So I was the only one on the tour that had this camera. Don't know where it is now, but I certainly have some of those Polaroids.
Excellent.
I had family in Lviv, but these were my mom's family, very kind of distant, so I didn't really get a chance to meet many of the family. I did bring clothes and jeans,
just in case,
and toothbrushes and everything like that, toothpaste, and dropped them off in the middle of nowhere in Lviv, and that was kind of the only connection that I had in Ukraine, because my dad was born in Canada, my mom was born in Ternopil area. Sorry, I said Lviv, Ternopil.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we had these an itinerary, kind of a pre-arranged itinerary sent to our relatives before we left Canada. So they were expecting us on this and this date and so on. So anyways, we find out when we finally connected with them, we find out from them that the authorities told them, no, those are the wrong dates. That they're arriving on this date, not the ones that you have here, that you're showing us. So as it turned out, my family arrived about 2 days or so before our actual arrival to the Dnipro, and spent, well, they couldn't afford the luxury of hotel rooms and all this kind of thing, and they weren't even allowed into hotels in the first place, so they ended up sleeping in the train stations for 2 nights or so. And I'm sure that was with many of the other relatives as well. So finally, when all the relatives started showing up in front of the Dnipro, it was total chaos, because now you're trying to put faces to faces and families to families. And of course, there were many of the dancers that speak Ukrainian.
Yeah.
So
they needed translators.
Who acted as translators, and I remember one of the dancers saying, "Myron, come over here. You got to meet my relatives." So I come over and I introduce myself, and this is all in Ukrainian, right? And I start talking to them, and then I realize during the conversation that, okay, these are not your relatives. And I turn around to
How do I break this to you? Yeah.
who it was,
Yeah.
but I said, I've just had a conversation with them, and they gave me the names and all this kind of thing, and those aren't your relatives. And they're like, what? I just finished exchanging gifts with them. What am I going to do? Go and ask for my gifts back? I got no more gifts left to give.
Yeah.
So, and this is what was going on from one family to the next, is trying to get everybody matched up. It was just one of the, it was disheartening in one way, but totally just a commedia in another way.
Upon learning that Rusalka was having an opportunity to go to Ukraine, my grandmother, who had emigrated when she was 16 with a young brother all by herself to Canada, was very excited about the prospects of possibly communicating, which was very difficult at that time because letters came or didn't come. They were redacted. So it was very sort of nebulous, but she took it upon herself to try and reach her sister, who was still living in Ukraine, to notify her and perhaps make an effort on behalf of the family to come and visit and see this ensemble from Canada. But there were no promises, so we went with an open mind, and so did my grandmother. In Ternopil, I did have a chance to meet her older sister, and it was so touching because this woman, who I recognized right away from the facial features that she would have been my grandmother's sister, she wore a chustka that my grandmother had sent, and she wore a green sweater that my grandmother had sent from Canada. And it was just an immediate embrace with me, a perfect stranger, and her, my grandmother's older sister. My grandmother had only seen her once in all this time that had passed. So it was, very important that I make myself available to her. And in those days, the rooms in our hotels were bugged with electronic devices. You needed to get written permission in order to bring somebody up to your room to be able to speak with them. And all of this was done, but my great aunt surprised me with something beautiful, because in the letters that my grandmother had sent, I had happened to express to her that I would really love a keepsake from Ukraine, which is a pair of gold, rose-colored earrings. And she opened this box up with this beautiful little pair of earrings in my room, with a price tag attached. And in the course of our conversation, mine very limited in Ukrainian, hers none in English, I learned that this pair of earrings cost her 2 months of pension in order to buy this for me. So it was a keepsake. But she asked me, she said, I understand that you have a young man that you are going to be married to. Would you like anything for him? And I said, a sorochka. I want an embroidered shirt. Well, you can't just go to Eaton's or the Bay and go through a rack of clothing. You have to know where to go, how to get there, how to access this type of request. So it must have been like a holiday, like a national holiday or a work holiday there, because the streets were just streaming with people. It was just busy.
this woman in her advanced age took me by the arm and off we went, walked upstairs, downstairs. I could even see her when she wanted service. She'd be pounding on the desk. She wants service. But, it was her joy to be able to, and we did. We were able to get a blouse for Dawn, or a shirt for Dawn. And what was a remaining treasure, my grandmother has gone now, but when I came back from Ukraine, my grandmother would say to me, "Tell me that story again about my sister. Did you see her? Is she still alive? How is she? Tell me that story again." And that's what makes one of the reasons why this was such a special trip.
Well, very fierce battles for liberation of Ternopil took place here in 1944, and it was in June of that year that Ternopil.
So we got into Lviv, and I had contacted my relatives, and my aunties and uncles had all passed away by this time. Along, my parents were gone as well. So as a result, they came out to visit me. So I met them.
So had they ever seen your parents since they left?
None of the cousins had seen my
So they'd seen nobody from your family. You were the first.
I was the first from the family from Canada that was still alive that they were going to meet with. So they were pretty excited. They arrived at my hotel and met me in the lobby. And as usual, there were a lot of greetings, trying to recognize each other. I did send them some pictures of myself so they could recognize me.
Because that was an issue.
Yeah. And I was still helping them out financially a little bit after my parents passed away. So they were quite happy to come in and see me. They were very reluctant to come up to the hotel room.
Yeah.
But I convinced them to come to the room, and as they walked in, there was about 5 or 6, I have pictures here, of them, and they were very quiet. They did not really speak much. They kind of listened to what I had to say a lot and kind of checked the room out. I had gifts to give them, so I wanted to give those all out before we moved on. And throughout that gift-giving process, they had asked me if we could go for a walk to the park.
Yeah.
And I kind of assumed that they weren't very comfortable being in the hotel, and this goes back to the security issue where they're being monitored.
Yeah.
And whether I'm even trustworthy, right?
Well, yeah, they don't know either.
They don't know who to trust. And as a result, after the gift giving, we went out to the park in Lviv, and we spent a wonderful afternoon together, sharing information as much, and them still browsing around, making sure that pictures weren't being taken by third parties. But it was very exciting. I had a great visit with them, and after that, they had to go back to Mykolaiv, where they came from, which is about 25-30 kilometers from the city of Lviv. And that was pretty well my visit with them.
Most of the stories that you have heard or will hear about families is how generous the familia was there. That they would give you stuff, frankly, that they could not afford. They bent over backwards. We had a bit of a different funny experience. Is that in my family on both sides, they came over between 1895 and 1903. So we're talking distant family, if at all. And so we weren't expecting to see any family when we got to Ukraine. But I guess one of my dad's sister's husbands had let family know that we were coming. And my dad, I think, knew about this, but didn't really talk about it much. So he gave us some old ties and some old rags that we could give to these relatives if we happened to run into them. So the first set of relatives that we encountered, we were kind of surprised, number one, to find relatives, but then we were kind of surprised by how well they were dressed. So what happened then?
Yeah, I was pretty upset with my father at that point. First of all, they told us that, we had no immediate relatives. We probably wouldn't meet anyone. We were only expected to meet Meron's family. And he said, well, just in case, we have, our life here is so different from theirs. Take some of my ties with you, and these are used ties. Take some of our ties. I'm sure they would like them. They probably can't buy stuff like that there. Here's some other little things, you can. And I thought, well, we're never going to use these. So I would put them in our suitcase, and
Surprise!
We never thought anything of it. And all of a sudden, these people appeared, and they were these distant relatives. And I looked at Taras, and I said, thinking in my head, my God, they're dressed way better than I'm dressed. Like we were in jeans and a t-shirt, and they came out beautifully dressed. And what did we have in our suitcase? Old ties and some schmata. I was so mad at my dad at that point in time. So we were supposed to meet them, and I ran into Hanya, my sister-in-law, Hanya's room, and I said, open your suitcase. And we have to find something to give these people because we cannot give them these old used ties. And so we searched through all our stuff, and I remember taking a belt, a beautiful gold belt from Hanya, and I had something dressy, and we were ripping through our suitcases to try to give something to these people. And I'm sure when we handed it over to them, they thought we were really lunatics. Like, why are you even giving me a belt? I don't even need a belt. Why are you giving me this? And I don't think we ever gave them the ties. I think I brought them home, and I was going to strangle something with the two ties. And then on top of it all, they decide that they would like to go to one of these stores.
Well, that's a second set of relatives. Okay, so then we had the second set of relatives, where there was a kashtan, and the kashtan was for tourists only.
Right.
And the locals could not go into the kashtan.
Exactly.
So it was a mom and her daughter and granddaughter, and they went into the kashtan, and their eyes lit up.
But I didn't. Who were these people?
Yeah, well, that was Frozina.
Oh my goodness.
Frozina and Vera and the daughter.
Okay.
But again, we had never met these people. We didn't know who these people were. So we're figuring, okay, we'll buy them some nice hustkier or whatever else.
A nice scarf. So they walk into this kashtan, and they're zeroing into the appliance department.
Washing machines.
And they're looking
fur
at
coats.
the washing machine. And then she's looking at a fur coat. And then she's like, and I look at my brother and I go, do they know that we're not rich? I mean, this is ridiculous. And then I looked at and I said, how much do you have in your wallet? And then we started looking through our wallets, and I said, we're lucky if we can even buy them a scarf in this expensive store, because all the prices were really high, because they thought all the tourists from Canada were extremely rich and they could buy them. And then we had to stand there and explain to them a little bit of economics. Like, we all
students.
have jobs, but they're part-time. We're students. Our parents did not give us thousands of dollars to come to
a washing machine.
We don't even own a washing machine yet.
Or a fur coat.
And a fur coat. I don't own that. And we we pay mortgages and we pay bills, and we just can't afford this. And it was really, really embarrassing once again.
Yeah.
And I wasn't prepared for that.
Hanya, Sparky tells a story about how our family we were surprised by relatives and she had nothing to give them, so she raided your suitcase. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And
I don't know, how does that make you feel?
she came in very upset, freaking out. I don't blame her because she didn't know. that your relatives were showing up. And she said, I need
stuff.
I need some.
What do you have?
What do you have? What do you have? And I said, oh, well, I have. And I had a gold belt, and I had some, nice shtadin, and I can't remember what else it was. And she was rifling
the bazaar.
My suitcase, going, can I take this? I need some good stuff because, they're really well off, and we don't have that kind of stuff. And she just, it was gone, and all the power to you, Alicia.
And you were very kind and considerate for allowing her to do that.
Of course, absolutely.
So, Anne, did you have a chance to connect with any familia in Ukraine, and who were they, and how were they related?
That was quite the experience for me. I had heard about my dad's family. He had a younger sister when he had left, and he had left when he was quite young. And, of course, his mother had stayed behind. And what I had heard, or had always known, that, he had limited contact with them. He went off and saw the world and landed where he landed. And by the time he made contact with his family, who were still back in Ukraine, he was already a married man with a young son.
Wow.
So that was, different. And then the exchange of letters, the exchange, but it was few and far between. But I had the opportunity that I was going to meet this auntie of
that you've never met,
had no idea, and and sort of made that connection with his father's side of the family. My big concern always was, will I be able to communicate with them?
Right.
As much as I have some knowledge of Ukrainian, or it's good Ukrainian, or are Ukrainian, it's not the perfect Ukrainian. And I was very fearful that, when I met them, what would I say? What do we talk about? How do we, communicate? And what would we talk about?
Yeah.
But when I met them, and I met, my father's sister and his niece, and I guess her family and the like, they were very warm, very welcoming, and they were very accepting of whatever.
Of course,
whatever I said. And
well, they would have been shocked that you could even understand.
That was part of it too. That and we did very well, and there was many things that we didn't quite understand, but we tried.
Yeah.
And I was able to spend a couple of days, many meals with them and some time with them, and I have that experience. And then I couldn't wait to come home and to relay all that to my father.
Yeah.
This is his sister. This is his brother-in-law, and this is
so
the
you
family.
took pictures, obviously.
Absolutely, took pictures, and and so it was more that I was relaying all this back to him because he didn't have that experience.
From the oldest living Cossack marks these words. A dancer is like an eagle that waits in the wings. A dancer is like the snake that slithers up to the bar. A dancer dances like a tiger on stage. Musicians, play a fast dance, and I'll dance till the heels of my boots disappear. Then I'll dance barefoot.
За нашим давнім українським звичаєм прийміть від нас цей запашний бувай, спечений з пшениці, яка росте на вільній, оновленій